In the far reaches of the Epsilon Eridani system, there was a planet called Virilia, covered in glowing rivers, blue-leaved forests, and tall crystal mountains. It was once a place of harmony and peace. The Virilians, the native inhabitants, lived with the land, drawing energy not from machines, but from the very air and earth that sustained them. But now, that energy was fading. The skies, once glowing with soft green light, had turned grey. The rivers dimmed, the crystals lost their shimmer, and the trees began to wither. Virilia was dying, and no one on the planet knew how to stop it. Their energy core, the Heartstone, was failing. Without it, their world would become silent and cold. The Virilians turned to the stars. They sent out a signal, not of panic, but of hope. It was soft, musical, and full of emotion. A call for help, translated into hundreds of frequencies, pushed outward into deep space. 10 light-years away, on Earth, the signal was picked up by an observatory station in the Himalayas. At first it was dismissed as background noise, but one woman, a linguist named Dr. Lyra Voss, recognized patterns in the sound. To her, it wasn't noise, it was language, and not just that, it was a plea. Lyra was 33 years old, a calm and steady voice in the often chaotic world of interstellar affairs. She had spent her life studying alien languages, working as a translator and peace envoy for the United Nations Galactic Division. Quiet but sharp, she had a rare gift for finding meaning where others saw only confusion. When she presented her findings to the UN Council, she didn't come with graphs or numbers. She came with a single audio clip, just the signal, played as it was. And when the council members heard it, even the most skeptical among them went silent. It sounded like someone singing. With Earth's attention now fixed on Virilia, the UN agreed to send a peace envoy, not a fleet, not a military scout, but one person with the mission to understand, to listen, and to help. Lyra volunteered without hesitation. As she boarded the diplomatic shuttle Solace, she looked out at Earth for what might be the last time in years. She carried no weapons, only her voice, her mind, and a translator AI she had personally programmed. The ship was small, fast, and designed for long-distance travel. Alone in her cabin, Lyra spent her time studying every scrap of data the Virilians had sent. Visuals of their cities, audio of their speech, images of their planet's slow decay. She felt a strange pull, not just as a scientist, but as a human being. This is what we're meant to do, she whispered to herself. Not conquer, not compete, but care. Days passed in silence, broken only by the hum of the ship and the rhythm of her breathing. Then the moment came. The ship dropped out of hyperlight near Virilia. The view through the window stunned her. Even in its weakened state, the planet was beautiful. Soft blue clouds, deep sapphire oceans, and forests that shimmered faintly in the dark. Her hands shook slightly as she prepared for descent. She had made contact with distant colonies before, but never an alien species with no prior Earth connection. This was a first, not just for her, for humanity. As Solace entered Virilia's atmosphere, she saw the cities built into trees, shaped by crystal, glowing softly under a sky that seemed to pulse with memory. They weren't just advanced, they were alive. She landed in a wide clearing, guided by a soft beacon that matched the signal Earth had received. A group of Virilians waited near the edge of the forest. Tall, graceful beings with smooth skin that shimmered like pearls and eyes that glowed faintly with light. They didn't approach her in fear or suspicion. They approached her with open hands and lowered heads, a gesture of trust. Lyra stepped out of the ship, her heart pounding. She held up her hand slowly and spoke in their language, one she had pieced together over weeks of study. I am Lyra. I have come to listen. The Virilians bowed slightly, and one of them stepped forward. He touched his hand to his chest and replied in clear, musical tones. We welcome the light from your sky. A chill ran down Lyra's spine, not from fear, but from awe. This was it, the moment history would remember. The day Earth met Virilia. She didn't know yet what dangers lay ahead, but in that moment, she believed in something rare, hope. Lyra stepped onto Verelian soil, the surface soft beneath her boots. A strange warmth rose from the ground, as though the planet itself still breathed despite its suffering. Around her the trees stood tall and still, their sapphire-colored leaves glowing faintly in the filtered sunlight. A gentle breeze moved through the forest, carrying the scent of minerals and something like blooming jasmine. The Verelians stood silently in a half-circle. There were 7 of them, tall, elegant beings, with elongated limbs and serene faces. Their skin shimmered softly, changing color in the light. Their eyes, large and glowing, watched Lyra not with fear, but with quiet curiosity. She didn't feel threatened. She felt welcome. The one who had stepped forward earlier repeated his greeting, this time more slowly. Lyra's translator confirmed the words. "We welcome the light from your sky." She responded carefully, speaking the same phrase in their language. Her pronunciation was not perfect, but it was enough. A ripple of light moved across their skin. She realized it was how they expressed emotion. This was joy. The leader introduced himself as Tharlan, elder voice of the forest district. He gestured for her to follow. 2 younger Verelians flanked her, their steps almost silent as they walked across the glowing path that lit up beneath their feet. Lyra's eyes widened as they approached a Verelian city, not made of metal or stone, but shaped from the living trees and crystal formations that grew naturally. Homes curled into the branches like woven baskets. Lights pulsed from inside, not from bulbs, but from living orbs that hovered gently in the air. Everything was quiet, calm, and in tune. As they entered the city, Verelians peeked from behind doorways and balconies, watching the human visitor. Children with glowing hair and wide eyes whispered in musical tones. Some of them reached out to touch her, amazed by her clothing, her hair, her voice. Lyra smiled and waved softly, and the children scattered, giggling. Tharlan led her to a central chamber, an open space beneath a giant crystal dome that bent the light in rainbow colors. The air felt cooler here. The floor was made of smooth stone etched with glowing lines, like circuits, but organic. In the center of the chamber stood a large, gently humming crystal, the Heartstone. This was the source of Verelia's power, and it was dim. Tharlan and the other elders gathered around the Heartstone. Lyra could see their expressions had changed. They were no longer smiling, their light dimmed, their posture lowered. Tharlan placed a hand on the stone and spoke. The translator relayed his words in a low, solemn voice. "This world is weakening. Our Heartstone fails. We do not know why. We called to the stars not for conquest or riches. We called because we are fading, and now you have come." Lyra stepped forward. She reached out, placing her hand gently near the Heartstone without touching it. She could feel the faint vibration, like a dying heartbeat. "I came to help," she said softly. "Not to take, not to rule, to listen, to learn, and to help if I can." Tharlan nodded. "You are the first, and perhaps the only." Over the next few days, Lyra stayed with the Verelians. She learned their ways, their songs, their signs, their fears. She discovered that their entire society was built around balance between energy and life, light and shadow. The Heartstone was not a machine but a living part of the planet, tied to the health of the environment. As the forests weakened, so did the stone. As the stone weakened, the energy that kept the world alive began to fade. Lyra documented everything. She sent reports back to Earth, urging scientists to study the energy signatures. She sent recordings of Verelian language, hoping for more accurate translations, and slowly, she began to earn their full trust. One evening, as the twin moons rose over the forest canopy, Tharlan joined her near a quiet stream. They sat in silence for a while, watching the water reflect the moons. "You carry great weight, skylight," he said. Lyra looked at him. "So does your world." He turned to her, his glowing eyes soft. "If more of your kind are like you, then there is hope." She smiled, though her heart was heavy, because she knew not everyone on Earth thought the way she did. Some saw alien worlds as places to study, others saw them as places to own. She hoped deeply that it would be people like her who reached Verelia first. She had no way of knowing that another Earth ship had already left, bigger, faster, and carrying weapons, and it was on its way. It began with a sound. Lyra stood in the quiet city square of the Virelians, helping a group of engineers examine the outer casing of the Heartstone, when the low, rumbling noise echoed through the sky. At first, it was distant, like thunder rolling far away. But within seconds, the sound grew louder, deeper, more forceful. The ground beneath her feet began to tremble. The Virelians froze. Lyra looked up, shielding her eyes against the pale blue sunlight. Above the treetops, something massive pierced the clouds. A dark shape, sharp, angular, unlike anything the Virelians had seen before. It cast a long shadow across the crystal forests below. Her stomach sank. She recognized the silhouette. It was a human warship, an Orion Dominion vessel. She tapped her wrist communicator and tried to hail the ship. No response. The vessel hovered in place for a moment, then slowly descended. Smaller crafts broke off and began flying low across the horizon, scanning the terrain. They weren't moving peacefully. They were surveying. "This isn't a UN ship," Lyra whispered. Thalan stood beside her, his skin dimmed with worry. "More lights from your sky." Lyra nodded slowly. "Yes, but they're not here like me." Within an hour, one of the smaller crafts landed just outside the city. A ramp extended, and a group of heavily armed humans marched down. Their boots clanked loudly against the soft soil. At the center of the group was a man in a black and silver uniform, broad-shouldered, clean-shaven, and cold-eyed. Commander Jackson Thorne. He removed his helmet and surveyed the area with sharp interest, his gaze resting briefly on the glowing trees and the Heartstone in the distance. "Well," he said, smirking, "looks like the rumors were true. This place is full of untapped energy." Lyra stepped forward quickly. "Commander Thorne, this is a diplomatic zone. You're not authorized to be here." Thorne turned to her, not surprised. "Dr. Voss, I figured you'd beat us here. Always the idealist." He gave her a mocking smile. "But diplomacy won't save this place." Lyra kept her voice steady. "This planet is dying. These people called for help, not invasion." Thorne's face darkened. "And help is exactly what we're bringing. The Virelians have energy resources far beyond anything Earth has ever seen. If we don't secure it, someone else will. You know how the galaxy works, Lyra." Behind him, the soldiers began setting up scanning equipment and markers around the clearing. They were laying claim. Virelians watched from a distance, confused, frightened. Children clung to their parents. Some elders stepped forward in protest, but the soldiers ignored them. "This is a violation of interplanetary law," Lyra said sharply. "The UN did not authorize this mission." Thorne laughed quietly. "The UN moves too slow. I don't answer to them. Orion Dominion operates independently. We're here to extract what Earth needs. And if you try to interfere, I'll treat it as obstruction." Lyra's heart pounded. She knew the Orion Dominion well. They were a private fleet, wealthy, powerful, and dangerous. They had political influence on Earth and operated just outside legal boundaries. Where the UN offered peace, the Dominion offered power. She watched as drones began buzzing through the air, mapping crystal veins beneath the surface. The noise of machines filled the once quiet city. Lyra looked back at the Virelians. Their lights dimmed, their hope fading. Thalan turned to her. "What does this mean?" She didn't answer right away. She couldn't. Her mind raced for a solution. Finally she said, "It means I have to stop him." That night Lyra tried to contact Earth. Her message was short, urgent, and coded to reach the UN Council directly. Unauthorized Orion Dominion presence on Virelia. Commander Jackson Thorne has begun extraction operations against peaceful inhabitants. Immediate response requested. Situation critical. She didn't know if it would get through in time. Meanwhile, Thorne's men began constructing a base just outside the Virelian settlement. Steel platforms and metal walls rose above the ground. Energy rigs were planted, digging deep into the soil. Each machine pulse drained more light from the forest. The Heartstone flickered once, then dimmed further. Lyra spent the next day trying to keep the peace. She spoke to Thorn, pleaded with him, warned him. He dismissed her each time. "These aliens will survive," he said, almost bored. "We're just taking what we need. They'll adapt." But Lyra saw the truth. The Virelians couldn't adapt to this. Their world was built on balance, on harmony. Disrupting the land meant disrupting their lives. That evening, she stood at the edge of the clearing and watched the Dominion base shine cold and bright against the gentle lights of the forest. The machines buzzed and rumbled. The trees around them had already begun to darken. Thalan approached her, his steps slow. "You tried to stop it," he said softly. "I'm not done trying," she replied. But deep down she knew the situation was slipping out of her hands. The Virelians had called for help. Earth had answered, but it had answered with greed. The days that followed were heavy with tension. Machines hummed day and night as the Orion Dominion's mining rigs dug deeper into Virelia's crust. Giant drills vibrated the ground, cracking through crystal formations like bone. Glowing trees began to dim and fall. Rivers slowed, their blue shimmer turning dull and lifeless. The once vibrant city of the Virelians now echoed with distant mechanical noise. Birds stopped singing. Animals fled into deeper parts of the forest. Lyra walked through the city each morning, trying to comfort those she could. But her words felt thinner with each passing day. The Virelians were changing. Their skin no longer glowed as brightly. Their songs became quieter, shorter. The children who once ran up to her with joy now watched her with wide, fearful eyes. Some no longer came outside. Their energy, tied to the health of their planet, was fading, just like the Heartstone. Thalan sat with Lyra beneath a weakened crystal tree. The leaves above them no longer pulsed with light. "You said your people came to help," he said softly. "I did," she replied. "But they did not come for the same reason I did. You speak peace. They speak hunger." Lyra nodded, shame burning in her chest. "I'm trying to stop them." He looked at her, eyes dull but calm. "Then hurry." Later that evening, a soft chime rang from her communicator. A message from Earth. She opened it quickly and read the words out loud. "Report received. Orion Dominion operation unauthorized. Command under review. Remain in place. Stand by for further orders. Stand by." That wasn't enough. Every hour, more of the forest died. Every day, the Heartstone dimmed further. Then came the moment everything changed. A group of Dominion drones flew too low near a Virelian temple. Children were playing near the edge of the square, watched over by a few elders. The drones scanned the structure, ignoring the Virelians completely. One drone hovered too close to a young child. Startled, the child fell and struck the edge of a stone basin, letting out a sharp cry. The Virelians rushed forward, and one of the elders raised his hand, not to attack, but to shield the child. The drone responded as it was programmed: detect movement, assume threat. A single warning blast fired. It wasn't lethal, but it knocked the elder to the ground, burning his arm and tearing through the crystal path. Lyra arrived moments later, out of breath, as a crowd formed around the injured elder and terrified child. The elder's skin flickered weakly, his light barely visible. Thalan knelt beside him, his face expressionless. But Lyra saw his hands trembling. That night, she confronted Thorn at the Dominion base. "You've gone too far," she said firmly. "You injured a civilian, an elder." "He got too close," Thorn replied. "My drones are here for safety. If the locals can't stay out of the way, that's on them. They're not in your way, you are in theirs. This is their home." Thorn crossed his arms. "And Earth needs what's in this ground. If we don't get it, someone else will. The Virelians will survive, but Earth might not. You think about that the next time you whine about peace." Lyra stared at him. "You've made yourself the enemy here. You're not protecting humanity. You're disgracing it." Thorn stepped closer. "You keep pushing me, Lyra, and you'll be the one left behind when this is over." She didn't flinch. "I already sent a report to the UN. They're watching you now." Thorn's eyes narrowed. For the first time he looked unsure. but it lasted only a moment. "You don't have proof of anything," he said, then walked away. But Lyra had proof. Her wrist communicator had recorded every word of their conversation. Her earlier transmissions included scans, drone footage, and environmental damage reports. She had even collected Viralian testimonies in their own language, clear evidence of harm and violation. And she wasn't done. That night, Lyra returned to the Dominion base in secret. She knew its layout from past visits. Using her access codes and stealth gear, she slipped past guards and entered the mining control station. She hacked the system, slowing the drill rigs and shutting down several drones. It wouldn't last long, but it would buy time. Before leaving, she sent a full transmission to Earth's Emergency Ethics Council, flagged for urgent review. Immediate action required. Unauthorized operations harming sentient life. Human-led conflict may cause extinction of native species. Recommending full recall of Commander Thorn and Orion Dominion forces. Peace must be restored. Time is running out. Then she vanished into the forest. Back in the city, Tharlan met her under the fading moonlight. "I broke their machines," she said simply. "It won't stop them forever, but Earth will see what's happening here. Help will come. Real help." Tharlan looked toward the Heartstone in the distance. Its light barely flickered now. "I hope it comes before the last light dies." Lyra stood beside him, silent. Her heart was heavy with guilt, but her mind was focused. She wasn't a soldier, she wasn't a hero, but she would not let Viralia fall, not without a fight. Lyra didn't sleep that night. She sat inside her small shelter, eyes fixed on the soft blue glow of the crystal lantern beside her. The forest outside was quiet, but not peaceful. The air felt too still, as if the planet itself was holding its breath. The Heartstone had flickered twice that evening, small bursts of light, followed by longer darkness. That had never happened before. Time was running out. Commander Thorn's Dominion base now stretched across the outer edge of the Virelian city. Tall towers flashed with cold white lights. New machines had arrived, larger ones, designed to extract energy crystals in bulk. Mining fields were marked with red beacons, and patrol drones circled overhead. The Virelians stayed indoors now. The city felt hollow. Lyra had one option left. She left before dawn, her steps quiet on the forest floor. She wore dark travel robes and carried nothing but a wrist communicator, a tablet with evidence logs, and a small EMP disruptor she'd received from a sympathetic technician inside the Dominion camp. He hadn't said much, just handed it over and nodded. Not everyone in Thorn's command agreed with what was happening. The base perimeter was guarded, but she knew the patterns. She slipped through a blind spot near the southern gate and moved fast, ducking beneath metal scaffolding. The air smelled of oil and burning crystal. She could hear the drilling machines roaring behind the hills. Inside the command tent, she connected her tablet to the network console. Her fingers moved quickly. She uploaded a full report, visual scans, damage logs, energy readings, drone recordings, and Thorn's voice captured during their last argument. She added one final message. "This is Dr. Lyra Voss, Earth Envoy to Virelia. The Dominion is destroying a living planet. Immediate intervention required. UN Charter Article 7 has been violated. If peace means anything, act now." She hit send. The signal reached Earth in seconds. Whether anyone responded was out of her hands. Now came the real risk. Lyra made her way to the drill controls. Dominion technicians were away, likely on break rotations. The main console blinked steadily. She placed the EMP device on the core panel and activated the countdown. 30 seconds. She turned and ran. As she cleared the outer gate, a loud crack burst behind her, followed by silence. The drills had stopped. Lights across the base flickered and dimmed. The entire system had shut down. Lyra kept running until she reached the Virelian square. A few lights were on in the windows. Tharlan stood in the center, waiting. His skin pulsed softly in the moonlight. "It is done," she said, catching her breath. He didn't smile, but there was relief in his eyes. "You have defied your own people. I've defied the wrong ones." They stood in silence, watching as distant lights from the Dominion base faded completely. The next morning, everything changed. A message came through, this time from the Earth Unity Council itself. Lyra played it aloud in the Heartstone chamber, surrounded by Thalan and the other elders. Commander Jackson Thorne's actions are in violation of interstellar law and UN peace agreements. The Orion Dominion operation is hereby terminated. Earth peacekeepers are en route. Stand by for enforcement and support. Lyra looked up from the message. Thalan's shoulders relaxed. For the first time in many days, his light brightened. By afternoon, Dominion soldiers were packing to leave. Their camp was dismantled under UN orders. Thorne argued with the peacekeepers, shouting about Earth's needs, about survival, about competition, but it was no use. The orders were final. Lyra stood nearby as Thorne was escorted to a holding shuttle. He caught her eye one last time. "You think this is over," he said, voice low and bitter. "You think peace will last." Lyra didn't flinch. "It will if people like you stop trying to break it." He was taken away. The skies above Virelia grew quiet again. The drills stopped. The drones were grounded, and as the Dominion ships pulled away from the horizon, the forest let out a soft wind, as if sighing in relief. That night, Lyra sat near the Heartstone. It was still weak, but its glow was steadier. A soft hum returned to its surface. Virelian healers began singing to it again, and the light responded, pulsing gently in rhythm. Children played again in the city square. Elders walked the paths without fear, and above them, the stars shone brightly. Peace had returned, not by force, but by courage. The first morning without the machines was quiet in a way Lyra hadn't heard since she arrived on Virelia. No drills, no engines, no buzzing drones, just the wind through the blue trees and the sound of crystal leaves brushing together like chimes. The sky was clear. Pale light from the twin suns shone over the city, touching the rooftops with soft gold. Peace had come, but not without cost. Commander Thorne had been taken away by Earth's peacekeeping force. His operation was dismantled, and his men were sent back to face trial. The Dominion base had been leveled, and its ruins cleared. All extraction equipment was confiscated. Earth had made its ruling. The Orion Dominion acted illegally and dishonorably. The Virelians had full rights to their world and resources. Lyra stood on the edge of the Heartstone chamber, watching the light pulse slowly from the great crystal core. The color was brighter than it had been in weeks. Not fully healed, but no longer dying. The songs of the Virelian healers had grown stronger. Their presence brought comfort not only to the Heartstone, but to the people around it. Across the city, the signs of recovery were visible. Crystal trees, once dulled and cracking, now shimmered again with soft hues. The rivers which had lost their glow flowed with light beneath the bridges. Children played freely again, their laughter returning to the city streets. Even the animals which had hidden deep within the forests had started to return. Thalan walked slowly through the city each day, greeting the people with calm words and quiet strength. He had not forgotten what happened, but he had not let it turn to anger. Instead, he led with patience. That was the Virelian way. Lyra had made her choice. She stayed. The UN had offered her many things, commendations, a return to Earth, even a higher diplomatic role, but she refused. Her place was here now, not as a savior, not as a hero, but as a listener, a bridge, a reminder of what peace could look like when defended with truth. She moved into a small living home grown near the edge of the forest, not far from the Heartstone. It was made of woven crystal vines and soft white stone, shaped by the planet itself. Inside she kept little, her translator, her notes and a glowing stone given to her by the child who had once been injured by Thorne's drone. The boy named Ilo visited often. He no longer walked with fear. His light had returned, strong and steady. He brought her news from the city, stories from the elders, and once even a carved flute that made music like birdsong. Lyra listened to him with care, always smiling. One evening she stood with Thalan beneath the twin moons. They watched the stars move slowly across the sky. "Your people answered our call," Thalan said. but only one came in peace. Earth is still learning, Lyra replied. We're not perfect, but some of us want to do better. Thalan nodded. That is enough. They stood in silence for a while. Then Thalan reached into his robe and handed her a small crystal. This, he said, is part of the Heartstone. It is a gift, not for power, but for memory. Lyra took it gently, holding it close. The crystal pulsed with a faint warm light. Thank you, she whispered. Virilia was healing. Slowly, day by day, it was finding its balance again. It would take time, maybe years, for the damage to fade completely. But the people had hope now, the kind that couldn't be mined or stolen. Lyra often walked the forest paths at sunrise. The ground felt steadier under her boots. The trees whispered as she passed, and when she reached the hill overlooking the city, she would pause, breathe in the cool air and look up at the stars. She saw Earth there sometimes, a tiny light far away, and she would smile, because she knew that her voice, her actions, and her choice to stand for peace had changed something. Not just here, but there too. The story of Virilia had not ended in conquest. It had ended in understanding, and from that, a new beginning had begun.